Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition. I don't know how many we've done this.
Another fabulous edition.
Another fabulous edition of the High Desert Podcast from live, somewhat snowy, live from
Soon to be snowy,
always beautiful
Santa Fe, New Mexico.
That was good. We got to figure out that's we can figure out like a thing like a program.
We'll just do it every single time.
Okay. Just play it
something new.
Play it by ear every single time. You can always expect something new from us. This episode is just Ben and I, not because we couldn't get a guest, because we get the best guests, of course, but because there's a lot of stuff going on in the news. We're reaching year's end. You will be hearing this in the new year. Reaching year's end, and there's a couple of interesting things that happened in pet or animal news this year, some of which we've discussed briefly on other podcasts in sort of an intro, but things that we feel deserve to be discussed a little bit more in depth. So,
by the way, I should mention this is Minnie. Minnie is sitting on my lap right now. She's a shelter alum who was adopted a couple of months ago. She's just visiting us for a while. Everybody seems to love her, even though she's a chubby little chihuahua, or maybe because she is a chubby little chihuahua. So Minnie's here, and she's one of the reasons we're here.
Yeah. Forgive my rudeness for not introducing Minnie. I'm looking at her right now. She has oh man, and you can all hear the noises she's making.
I couldn't believe that you said that we didn't have any guests.
Of course, we have a very esteemed guest. And she's like, really, just chill. She likes that.
Yeah, she makes really interesting sounds.
Yeah, like that one. It's like a combination of, I don't know, indigestion. And...
No. I think it's content. When you're content, you just.
I do actually like kind of.
Dogs don't. Growl. Dogs. They don't have the ability to purr, but they do certainly have the ability to be purr-like. Mm-hmm. So anyway, that's Minnie.
Actually, my dog does that too. When he's very content, when he lays out, he goes, which I guess I do too, just like that. Anyway. First story. Sorry.
Animal news in the world today.
Animal news in the world today. This first story coming at us from, I guess, Washington, D.C. It's an FBI-related story. One that we talked about before and was actually announced in 2014 for the first time from the FBI, but they say they're going to start it in 2016, so January 2016. And that is the FBI going to... keep track of violent crimes, essentially what they consider to be animal abuse, which is, as far as I can tell from any investigation done here, hard-hitting investigative reporting from the shelter, egregious bodily harm caused to animals. And obviously, in order for them to keep track of that, it has to be reported by... probably, in most cases, local or county or state police department. So it's not as if the FBI is actually going to be tracking down and apprehending animal abusers. What they're doing is they're going to aggregate the data from other smaller law enforcement agencies and then use that as a means of, it sounds like, trying to predict or...
just to be on top of... sort of like I would even think about it as a terrorist watch list, but an animal terrorist watch list. What goes through my mind is the whole Silence of the Lambs things and the whole team that they had looking for mass murders and things like that.
Exactly. Yeah. I read a book when I was younger, high school, middle school. About FBI profilers.
Was that 2 years ago? Or something?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I wish.
FBI profiling. Yeah.
FBI profilers,
yes.
And these are folks that in the book I read, which is an autobiography, the guy's name escapes me. They go into a crime scene. They can tell from what the crime scene looks like, the way things, usually a body is displayed or laid out, as well as the way other things are arranged in the crime scene. They can kind of feel like they can get the demographics of who these people are and what they look like.
Exactly, and the whole idea behind it is to keep a tabs or just sort of understand the trends and figure out who might most likely be dangerous in the future.
And in that book, which for the video at least, or maybe we'll do a voice overlay, I'll give you the book and the author. He does explain very clearly that when they're going to investigate and they think they have a suspect, especially for like a serial murder or spree killing or a murder that is also somehow sexual in nature, that they will always ask the question, is this person in their youth or currently a pyromaniac? Do they set a lot of fires? have, I don't know how popular this one was. It was definitely in the book when I read it. A bedwetting problem, an adult bedwetting problem, and abuse towards animals. Abuse towards animals being the most serious one. It's funny talking to Mary. Mentioning this to
director.
Our executive director, Mary, has said, well, what teenage boy doesn't have a problem with lighting fires?
Fire's a different thing. In fact, we have to stay away from the fire subject because we just recently had our Farolito lighting ceremony, and that was all about fire. Right?
It's all about fire, and it was completely incident-free.
Yeah, it truly was. Well, mainly because all the candles were digital. Well, not digital, but battery operated. Electronic. But we did have
Electric.
fire dancers, which is really cool.
We did.
And a bonfire, which we call Luminaria here.
Yes. Yeah. It was the courtyard was full of fire under control.
Fire.
And you'll see there should be videos up of that probably as you're watching this on our website or on our YouTube or Vimeo sites.
That was a wonderful ceremony.
It was. Come out next year. If you didn't come out this year, we had free, cookies and hot chocolate and music and the adoptions area was open, so you could go help, socialize some.
Everybody had
dogs.
fun cuddling kittens and dogs and whatever they wanted to.
Yeah. So back to pyromania or serial killers on this podcast. So Ben, does that strike you as surprising at all that people who are animal abusers end up committing more heinous crimes?
No, in fact, certainly, it took a long time for our society to realize that there was a link between animal abuse and any kind of abuse that comes later. And one thing I'm really proud of our state for, New Mexico is often on the bottom of animal welfare protection laws and legislation. But even last year, we had a conference here in New Mexico on the link between animal abuse and domestic violence, and really educating our animal control officers and law enforcement officers about how serious that link is. And so I think that is so wonderful for our community, our state, to be able to do something like that and to really take a look at it and to take it seriously. Because I think a lot of people say, oh yeah, he's just beating up his cat. That's what teens do. No, that's not what teens do.
Right.
And it's not right.
Right.
And the first step in changing the problem is to acknowledging the problem and to really look at ways to stop that problem. So what's wonderful about this FBI list and what we're doing on our local level and state level is that we are acknowledging that there's something going on and that we can actually get in there with services to help that person out, so it doesn't escalate. It doesn't, Dahmer, one of one of our worst, really a monster. He started. It's well documented that he started with injuring and killing and doing all kinds of things to cats. So
I didn't know that.
Yes.
It's interesting. I think it's easy to, maybe it's not easy to sensationalize or blow out of proportion. I think young boys in particular do stupid things when they're teenagers and maybe lash out in violent ways. But I think, I think animal abuse is pretty recognizable to most people, most sane people. I don't think, teasing an animal necessarily represents animal abuse, at least in this context. I think what it looks like. I think causing, the intent to cause physical pain, exactly, to an animal is something that should, and it's amazing to me that not to critique the FBI, but it's amazing to me that this is kind of the first we hear this instituted in a policy way. Because certainly I can't say that, but certainly FBI, I hope, is looking at domestic abuse cases, spousal and child abuse cases, as precedent for more, that's pretty heinous, but let's say more deadly attacks to maybe to random populations or targeted, whatever. So it's interesting. We've known about this link for for decades, and are only now keeping track of it in order to, I think, mainly just get a complete data set. I don't know that they are going to try to minority report, sort of pre-crime, track down folks who are animal abusers and charge them with terrorism. That's not the case. And keep in mind, too, FBI is not going around charging people with animal abuse. They are just aggregating the data from other law enforcement agencies so that they are aware of people. If you have, maybe you got a guy who's known to have said disparaging things towards some particular ethnic group and also has 8 counts of animal abuse across 4 different states. That's a guy you might want to keep an eye on. Yeah.
And I did want to mention along that line is that there's also a lot of data out there that shows that some people in a domestic violence situation, they will stay in that home because of the animals, and those perpetrators know that the person loves that animal. Sorry, Minnie's doing a little mini thing, and so it's important that we have a program where we work with women's shelter groups, and we will take in an animal in a domestic violence situation where that person can get out and get some help and not worry about her animal. And that's really, some people do terrible things just to show their power that they have over that person. And unfortunately, an innocent animal may get in the way of that. And so I'm glad we're able to help those people out.
Right. It may get in the way or function as some sort of proxy, saying, I'm not going to hit my wife, but I will smack the dog around to show her that I mean business, which is obviously cowardly and terrible. And actually Ben mentions probably one of the, I can say honestly that and I'm sure I speak for everybody here, am proud of all the programs that we have here at the shelter, but the one for protective custody animals is one that we don't get to celebrate that much because it is, the shelter we work with actually does not publish their address. It's kind of a secretive location.
Protective custody.
Yeah, so. Protective custody. And it's not something that we get to celebrate or shout from the rooftops that much, but it's such an awesome program that these women or family members can have a safe place for their pet while they're trying to figure out their own family situation. So that's great.
What's next on your list of news?
Switching to cats. So this was I remember reading this and...
Yeah, it's a Post article, right? About the cat.
No, was that the Post?
There was one in a Post. They're all...
I think the Post was the IVF about puppies, which was actually made national news and was a big deal. So we'll get to that one last. The cat one is, this is from the Independent. This is from a British study, and
picked up by a lot of different wire services, but
yeah. So you heard it, obviously. So this is a British study, basically trying to figure out if cats actually love you.
Or actually just care about you.
Care about you in emotional context. There are various outlets have written it in more or less sensationalist manners, but essentially whether cats care about you the same way dogs are. Dogs, when you get home, are usually inevitably happy, almost too happy to see you, and genuinely love your presence, and And
so the study goes to show that, or tries to determine whether, but dogs and cats are such different animals, and the way that a cat might show its love is so different than a dog would show its love. And I think there's also studies that show much of the behavior that dogs have picked up is because it's a reward system. They know when they see you and they're happy, you're happy to see them. It's a mutual kind of a thing. And so it's a gratification kind of a thing. And they're probably going to get a treat from it eventually. Cats don't really care much about treats. They like treats, but it's like when you come home, it's like, okay, I'm going to hide because I'm kind of upset with you or something like that. Anyway, what was the outcome of the study?
Or just that cats don't consider our motivations or our don't consider us as much at all. They coexist, and a lot of this goes back to a topic that we'll discuss again at a later time in more depth when we have an expert that's going to visit us. Has to do with the time span of domestication. So cats have been in our homes for a lot shorter periods of time.
They do say that,
dogs.
yeah, but I just don't see that. Well, I don't know 100,000, 200,000 years how cats will be differently. I'm sure they will be a lot differently, but definitely dogs have been domesticated a lot sooner than cats. And the relationship with cats to humans is also through the centuries changed, and it's different. And mostly it was rodent control, and now it's more rodent and not control, but happiness to your heart.
Yeah, companionship.
Yeah.
And Ben hits it right on the nose, right? We claim we domesticated cats. I think around 6,000 years ago. They claim in I don't think it was in this article, in another article in Northern Africa, people who took their Archaeology 101 course remember that the ancient Egyptians worshipped cats for a period of time and mummified them and were buried with them. Why? I don't know that we know that. Certainly seems an animal kind of deserving of worship. They keep themselves clean. They're obviously really intelligent. They're agile. I mean, cats are amazingly agile. They're pretty much wherever you have a cat species in the world, they're almost always an apex predator, the most adept predator in their environment. Felinus sylvestris, which I believe is the name, the taxonomical name for the domestic cat, house cat, is obviously smaller, but is anatomically almost exactly the same as a lion or tiger or something 500 pounds heavier. And so, yeah, I don't know. I have cats. You have cats.
No, I don't have
You
cats, but I have them here.
Yeah. We all have cats.
But I did want to note that even just last week there was a new study that showed that dogs and humans go back even farther than we thought.
Right.
I don't know exactly how far back, but they're finding it. I think
they claim 30,000 years. I think in the study you're talking about.
Well, yeah, the latest study shows, or not a study, obviously, research paper shows that it was even further back in time than we imagine. It's just to show that dogs have been very successful, adapting to our lifestyles and helping us out.
Yeah, and that I think that also showed that the earliest fossil, I don't know if it's quite fossil evidence yet, but that they show domestication of dogs going back to Southeast Asia as the epicenter of that.
Remember that. It's kind of interesting to see that dogs have been with us so long, and we still don't understand them.
There's a lot, and that's what we're going to get to on our last story. But that's a really good point. I mean, there's a lot we don't know, and I think we do. I think after you live with dogs and not just living with them, I spend 16 waking hours a day with the animals. You get an idea of that they're really complex socially and psychologically, more than a lot of people.
They offer a very surface kind of sort of understanding, but when you really, but they're much more complex than you think. Anyway, and that's, you can think, I guess it's because when you ask dogs to sit and they sit, they think, oh look, I've got a trained monkey, but they're so much more complex than that.
Exactly. And so the study is saying, we keep going off on dog tangents about this cat article, that essentially cats don't get the same gratification of just having your company, that they stick around or they were able to be domesticated. And I think this, if it's not in this article, but the study itself questions the word domestication at all. Are these animals actually domesticated? They don't do what we want them to. Yeah. They're certainly tame enough that they don't pose a danger to us, nor are they big enough really to pose a danger to, well, I don't know about that. They could.
I just flashed to this YouTube video, something about will your cat kill you? Or is that the name of the study? No. Yeah. Anyway.
No, but there was another article about that if cats were bigger, they might try to take us down.
Exactly.
But because we're the larger species in their environment, they don't try to do that, and they just accept food from us.
Much longer, those cats will just be massive cats attacking us.
Who knows? I mean, yeah, I don't know.
Anyway, on that tangent, it was really kind of nice to know that our administration has decided to list some lion species as endangered.
Yes.
To stop the illegal trade of these poor creatures.
Hunting, trophy hunting of big cat lions in the case of...
There was a tangent that was related to felines.
It was. I think, a lot of that attention is after the whole Cecil the Lion
actually, they say that it's been in the works for several years.
Okay, good.
But it's good that they are finally doing it.
Yeah.
Or trying to do something about it.
Great. And, cheetahs and leopards, I believe, are even more endangered than lions are, and they're protected as well. I just don't know that they're, in the minds of some people, as symbolic, and so I don't know if they garner as much attention.
They do. But, it's interesting that the articles that I've read about the recent designation of endangered species of these lion species is that it's not just hunting, it's also just lack of territory that, encroaching human population has pushed them out. And so we find that here in our own country. Yeah,
they're non-sedentary. They follow herds around southern Africa, or used to be all over Africa, but now southern Africa. And so the question is, relating back to that, if they were bigger, would they take us down? And do your cats have an emotional connection to you? I think everybody would confess that it's not the same emotional connection that a dog has.
I think there'd be a lot of people who would just be very upset with that statement.
There were a lot of people who were very upset with that when they came to this conclusion. And
if you're not a cat person, you don't see the connection. If you are a cat person, I think that you see more of a connection than the casual observer.
Yes, yeah. And I mean, my cat seems to be affectionate, and we only got this kitten after this study came out, because this study came out a few months ago. And I noticed that, yeah, like she tends to want to snuggle up to me more when it's cold and is using my body for warmth, and that she's very demanding about food in the morning, and so there's a relationship of convenience there for her. But I do think there is an emotional connection, and verified, I think, by her relationship with my dog. She loves my dog. She follows him around. They play. Cool. And when he goes to bed, she tries to lay on top of him. Maybe for warmth again, but I got to believe that there's an emotional connection there.
Yeah, well, probably not. But it's good. It's good that you think that and you wanted to.
Yeah, I can live in my own fantasy world of my
can.
Animal family.
Of course you
everybody
may.
All getting along. So I think that's pretty much it. Write all you angry cat people, write in and tell us we didn't spend enough time on cats, and that
we can go back to cats all the time if you like.
We can talk. I can talk about cats all day, and tell us how ridiculous this study is. Please, please submit your counter arguments. Not to us, to whatever. It was the University of Lincoln in England published the study, and this article was published by the Smithsonian, so it is legit. And then last article gets back to, how complicated and how misunderstood, or the lack of understanding that we have about dogs, which is this IVF in vitro fertilization project with beagles made at least the nightly news, CBS News, which is what I try to watch during the week. And in vitro fertilization we've been doing on humans and other species since the 70s. It's not a new technology. But it was difficult to perform on dogs because of both anatomical and
just a variety of reasons.
Variety of biological reasons. But essentially the gametes, the cells that perform fertilization and produce an offspring, are not the same in dogs. There's an issue with fertilization and how long these cells remain viable in dogs as opposed to humans or other species. What I thought was really interesting, Ben, was the pretense of the study, or the reason behind why they were doing this sort of research. Because as we know, working at the shelter, there's no shortage of dogs. No shortage of dogs and no shortage of breeding problems with them. What they claim that this is going to fix or help mitigate is the one reason I do believe is to try to expand canine populations in the wild. So wolf, coyote, fox, I believe, are canids as well. In various parts of the world, those species, I don't know anywhere necessarily where coyotes are endangered, but certainly wolves and fox.
Sorry, she just has to look at me. I'm adorable. It's just, dogs can't help it.
Wolves. What I was saying? Wolves, foxes, and jackals are endangered in parts of the world, and this is one means of trying to improve their populations. I can't speak to whether that's a viable way of doing that. The other one that got me was to make current breeds of dogs or modern breeds of dogs healthier. And that's the one where that seems interesting and worthy of debate. Not that I'm disagreeing off the bat, but...
Well, it is interesting, but, one of the reasons why so-called purebred dogs are not as healthy is because they've been bred to, not properly and different ways that they didn't... Yeah, if you're going to breed a dog... they want certain characteristics, and those characteristics may not be the best things to go after. Anyway, like German Shepherds have a lot of hip dysplasia. Bernese Mountain Dogs have a specific type of cancer that they're prone to. I don't know. The reason behind that is because of just continual breeding that is not good for the species itself.
Yeah, narrow genetic diversity, right? When you're trying to breed for a certain trait. So let's say in the case of a Dalmatian, black and white spots, right, or that particular coloring, you're going to breed the two animals that resemble, male and female, that resemble those traits the best. Now, in some cases, the male and female that resemble those traits the best may be cousins or maybe brother and sister. And having that much genetic similarity causes chromosome problems.
Exactly.
And it causes birth defects and all that sort of stuff, as it does with every other sexually reproducing animal in the world. And so So I get the logic here that that gene editing is what they're calling it. Gene editing techniques through in vitro fertilization may, I guess, you could provide greater variance within the genotypes that you're using in the genes that you're using. But there are so many healthy mixed breed dogs out there.
Nice.
The idea that you're going to spend thousands of dollars with an in vitro fertilization on whether it's a specific bloodline or that you're going to use in vitro fertilization to breed out certain traits or to try in order to try to get the perfect dog. The perfect dog isn't simply determined by genes. That's not going to work out for you.
It is really interesting if you think about what the perfect dog is. I mean, so everybody has a certain kind of look that they want, or style that they want, or size. It's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
You know. And,
yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, and this species, Canis lupus familiaris, the common dog, is the most phenotypically diverse species on the planet. You know, everything from this little nugget right here, this little Chi-Chi right here, all the way up to Great Dane or Bull Mastiff is the same species and theoretically should be able to interbreed. Now, whether the anatomy works with that, I don't know. But their genes, in the case of like an in vitro fertilization procedure or artificial insemination procedure, should be able to produce viable offspring. There's nothing saying they can't. Now, you know, I don't know whether the genetic variance in that, I don't know if people try to do that, but
you know, the whole idea about breeding is kind of an interesting topic that we will probably have to devote a certain amount of time to.
Yeah.
One time or the other. Definitely not just the intro. It's kind of easy. Yeah. Sorry. She's slapping my face right now. So
I mean, it's if it wasn't so damn cute, it would be easier.
That's a learned behavior.
Yeah, exactly.
That? She slaps me, I give her some.
Yeah, we haven't talked about animal on human abuse yet. So my issue with the idea of in vitro fertilization, spending so much money and time on this, is that as working at the shelter here, we have dozens of healthy, beautiful dogs that don't have some of these genetic issues that result from pure breeding, which not taking any not critiquing breeders or that business at all, but we know how to breed healthy traits into dogs through admixture, which is a matter of simply mixing breeds. And there have been cases with this. Dalmatians is one case where they started breeding with pointers because Dalmatians have such bad health problems, or
yes, they do.
And with deafness and hips and all sorts of stuff, bone disease. So they started breeding with pointers, which is a decidedly healthier breed of dog. So the idea that you're going to use in vitro fertilization to do that when very, very traditional means can do the same things by, mixing breeds and not being so stringent towards certain bloodlines seems to fix the issue in a cheaper, more convenient, and ultimately more humane way. There's dogs that need homes, and we don't need to, I don't know that we need to necessarily...
I just think it's interesting. I think it's fine, just because of the science. It's just an interesting thing to do.
Yeah.
So,
but I would encourage you to adopt a dog from a shelter, not do it through in vitro fertilization. Is my point, I guess. There's dogs that need homes that are alive right now.
Yeah, and I think that very few people would actually be able to afford something like that when it becomes available.
Of course,
available. But yes, of course, we always all want our animals to find homes.
Yes. Yes.
I did have to say that I did have a Shar-Pei Dalmatian, so she had all the unhealthy qualities of both breeds.
Oh.
So she had a terrible skin problem. She couldn't hear well, but she was the love of my life. So
I bet she was beautiful.
She was beautiful. She was a kind of a sable-colored dog, so she had spots, but you couldn't really see them. But she was a great dog.
Oh, that's
Beta.
so cool. We got a couple of what they call leopard print or Merle Catahoula type dogs in from Farmington.
Very
I think.
cool dogs.
Beautiful, beautiful dogs. I mean, I think you shouldn't choose a dog based on how they look and everything, but you can always admire the beauty of a particular animal.
I don't think there's anything wrong with choosing the dog on how it's looked, because you want to, but open yourself up to all dogs, because you'll be surprised. A lot of people come in looking for a specific dog, and they go home with something completely different.
That's a good point. I should rephrase. You can certainly look at looks for a dog, but it shouldn't be the only determining factor. If you find a dog that looks really pretty and it doesn't get along with your other dogs in the home, not a good choice.
Right. Or let's say, you really like the lab look. But then but you've never had a lab, and you take a lab home, and the dog drives you crazy because it wants to exercise with you all the time, and you don't want to exercise. It wants to fetch all the time, and you don't want to fetch. I mean, that's not the dog for you. Maybe you need a dog that's a couch potato.
Exactly right.
So it's a combination of looks and, activity level, what you want.
Exactly. And with that piece of wisdom, I think we'll end for today. Thank you so much for joining us once again. This was an interesting session. Ben and I wanted to trying to test out what it would be like just us discussing these hot topics, just the two of us, and yeah, it's that's how it went. So let us know how it went.
Well, just the three of us, because I think
the three of us.
Minnie
obviously.
had a few.
So that's it. That's this latest episode of High Desert Podcast. If you have any questions,
don't forget to put the paw in podcast.
Yeah, it's PAWEDCAST at sfhumanesociety.org. Ben handles all the Facebook communications, so if you're angry, write to us on Facebook.
And also, I want you to know that when we'll be having these, we'll link some of the articles that we've been talking about on our website under our podcast, High Desert Podcast site.
Yeah, and if possible, we'll embed them into the video in one of those little things. They'll be out. You'll find them if you want to. If you want them, you'll find them.
Yeah, you'll find them.
Okay. So thank you all so much, and have a good week.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.